you've had some challenging relationships.
I have.
I mean, you shared with me some things that really touched me. Just having the courage to leave a relationship that you knew was not healthy.
Oh, yeah. And that when you begin to question yourself and the values that you've had that you are not allowed to keep, being married to a person who was a pathological liar and expected me to do the same thing when that wasn't my value was very detrimental to my mental health.
Yeah.
So when I finally said that's enough, and I sought professional help to get through that, and it finally gelled, and I was able to say enough is enough.
Good morning, Green Country. Thank you for joining us today on this episode of Mornings with Missy. Today's segment we are calling Becoming Strong Women, and I have with me as my guest today Miss Jeanne. She is by far and away one of the strongest women I know, and it's not just because of her stature. I have seen this lady right here throw two 40-pound bags of feed over her shoulder like they're feather pillows. But that's not the reason that we're here today to talk about strong women. Jeanne has just an incredible story, and I wanted you to stop by the studio today and just let us know you.
Okay.
And tell us about how you first. Okay, let me say, you were one of the very first women that I met here in Henryetta.
That's what I was thinking about
Yeah.
when we came here, and both of us were facing some challenges then, and the support that we had for each other got us both through it.
It did.
And I, consider you a very good friend.
Yeah, likewise.
And just admire all the things that you have done as well.
Well, thank
and
you.
You're a strong woman too.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, let's talk about you. You're a realtor, a horseman. What are all of the hats that you wear?
Well, I came from a family. My parents had a large ranch in Montana that they ran, 27,000 acres. And I was the tail end of the family. My older brother and sister, there's quite an age gap between us. So I had to grow up pretty quickly. They didn't treat me like a little kid. And then my dad left and went back into the Forest Service. And he is a range management specialist at the time. And I got to travel with him during the summers and learn about the grasses, the impact of livestock on the range. So many things that he taught me that I really didn't know that I was being taught.
Yeah.
So I have a history of changing jobs about every 7 years, because when I learn it and I get a little bored, then I want to change.
Yeah.
So I started out, my very first job was as a yard back in a sale barn. And we had to take care of the cattle on sale day. We had to put hay up on these bunks that were sitting on top of the corrals. And I worked there for a couple of years, hard work. But I still loved working with the cattle and everything. Then went on to a desk job in an insurance company, and then became director of community education. And this is while I was in Wyoming. And community education put together classes for adults. One of the ones that was so instrumental in changing my young trajectory and also changing my biases was I was in charge of the GED classes, general education degree. And being a graduate myself, I could not understand why people didn't graduate from high school.
Right.
And the first class that we had and the first test that I gave, it was a whole class of people in their late 20s, mid 30s, and to a person, when they got done, and all of them were successful, they all passed, their first thing was to call their mom.
Oh.
And I loved that, and it changed me because I listened to their stories and of, you know, having to go to work to support families and not being able to finish school. It was an important education for me. From there, I left Wyoming and came to Oklahoma because it allowed me to ride horses all year round. Wyoming, it's May to October, maybe. Probably September. But training horses was also very good for me. I was really an introvert, which no one can believe. But training horses required so much patience and understanding that the process of doing that, and I had a terrific mentor who I worked with for 3 years. And this particular horse that we were working on, he told me, he said, don't show before she's ready because she's going to be one of the great ones. I went to my very first AQHA reining show in Wyoming, and I was the only woman and the last to go. And he had told me not to leave my best run in the pen, but just to keep her warmed up. And so I went out, said a little prayer, and put the pedal to the metal and walked out. And 2 famous horsemen were on the gate, and they opened the gate and they said, "What'd they say your name was?"
We're going to remember you.
And I had won it. That gave me a lot of confidence, of course, to go on and do better. But that horse was never defeated in reining.
Wow. How old were you at that age?
I was late 20s.
Okay.
So I was 30 when I came to Oklahoma, and there was a big difference between the atmospheres in Wyoming, which the ratio of men to women is 3 to 1. And I was always fortunate to be in jobs where men promoted me and gave me the knowledge to do better. And especially in community education, I started classes, and we started small, and it grew so well that we were able to bring $1.5 million a year and put it back into the school district because it was held in the schools. And I decided that I wanted to have a college program because our kids were going to the University of Wyoming and flunking out. And so I went to this high school principal that I'd worked with and asked him, because he was so supportive, asked him if he would go with me to speak to the president of Casper College to get instructors to us. And he said, "No, I want you to do it yourself." And I'll tell you, he was so prepared in everything that he did that it taught me to be prepared. So I went to Dr. Tiger's office and we got it done. And some 25 years later, my second niece, some relative, graduated from University of Wyoming in 2 years. And I said, "How did you do that?" And she said, "Through the community education program you started."
Wow.
And she said, "I got all my classes 2 years while I was going to high school. And then the last 2 years went to the university."
Oh, wow, that's a great feeling. Now, you brought some pictures.
Sure.
And I want you to, because this brings up 1979. I mean,
Yes.
these stories that she's sharing lays the groundwork for, why we can look at these photographs and see the recognition that you received in 1979. So pull that one up. And some of the others, I want you to just share with me.
Yes, in 1979, I was nominated for Young Businesswoman of the Year for Douglas. And because of my work in community education, I was given that award. I was very humbled by it. And they featured me in the parade on a float by myself. And I got to the end of the parade, and the man who had given me my very first job as a yardback at the sale barn was there, and he said, "I knew you were going places." And that just was such a validation that I really can do, can make a difference. The sky's the limit.
Yeah. You shared some photos too. I mean, I'm not certain how we could just talk for hours and hours, but you also shared some photographs when you were younger, 3 or 4 years old, and you were putting a bridle on a horse, and so at an early age you were doing things that our generation today may not let our kids do.
I agree with that, and I feel that that's why the strength develops, is being allowed to do those things and not succeeding. But we weren't bailed out.
Right.
We had to figure it out, because oftentimes we were alone. I was alone on that ranch trying to bridle my horse. Actually, my mother was taking the picture, but I had to learn how to do that myself because I didn't want to wait on them. Right. If I wanted to go for a ride, I didn't want to have to wait.
Yeah.
So, and that that independence, I know, has served me well.
So how did you? I mean, you obviously landed in Oklahoma, and you're in the real estate. How did you transition into farm?
Well,
and ranch land management, or I don't know if that's the right terminology, but
it's land sales, and that came from all these years of experience with land and livestock. My husband was terminally ill, and we knew that he would pass away within a year or so. I was giving lessons to one of my students, and I said, I don't know what I'm going to do, because I don't want to work 8 to 5. I don't want to be in an office building. I don't know what I'm going to do. And she goes, real estate. She said, you were born to it. And she said, especially land real estate, because there's not many people who have that expertise. So I went to her realtor, and I armed with my resume, and she has been my mentor through this, a great woman, Jeanne, who I just think the world of. And then I transferred to Keller Williams, and my broker there, again, I was just so fortunate to be so well supported. And I told him, I said, I don't know about real estate. I don't know how I'm going to do here. And he goes, I'll teach you all about the paperwork. He said, but your life has led you here. And he said, you have more information and more knowledge about what is in land than anybody that I know of. And he said, I'll teach you the rest of it. And that mentorship led me to be the high land sales for nearly 5 years. And with Keller Williams, one of the largest real estate companies in the United States.
Was that, what year was that?
I started there in 2011. I started real estate then. I started with Keller Williams in 2014.
Okay.
One of the things that I think is so important, and I learned it when I was in high school as a competitive swimmer,
I'm not surprised. Okay.
I had a gal that I competed with. I was a freshman and she was a senior, and she's a little short thing, and all of our competitions she beat me by 1/10 of a second or 1/1500ths of a second or whatever the case, but she always beat me. And I went to the coach and I said, how am I going to beat her? And he looked me directly and he said, you don't compete against her. You compete against the best of yourself. And he said, you improve yourself and it will happen.
Yeah, and Jeanne, from the time I've known you, you've had a little saying. You want to share what that is? You know what I'm talking about with the 1%?
Oh, yes. And that came from the horses, because it takes time to teach them, because we can't speak to them and let them understand. We do it through a pressure and release. And if we gain 1% a day, in 100 days we'll be 100% better. And we can apply that to ourselves as well, and not be so hard on ourselves when we're trying to accomplish something.
So you mentioned pressure and release. So that goes along with the relationships, because as we were talking about you coming on here and all of the things that we could discuss, and we wanted to really just focus on, strong women and what it takes, and encouraging those around us. We were discussing, some of the statistics in Oklahoma and regarding violence amongst
Against
partners against women, and Oklahoma is one of the
top 10 in
and
abuse
that's according
and murder.
That's according to the Attorney General's records. So it's not something that you and I just came up with. And so we were discussing that and the concerns that we have, for even some of the women that we know of today that are in just hard relationships that, and I don't mean hard, I mean marriage is hard.
Yeah.
Work relationships are hard. I'm not talking about that sort of thing. I'm talking about dangerous relationships. And you got some stories. I mean, you've had some hard relationships.
I was married to a pathological liar, and he expected me to take on that role as well. And my values wouldn't let that happen. And that incongruence was such an internal fight that in my work, it got so bad that when someone would call on the telephone and I would answer the phone, when I hung it up, I couldn't remember who called or what they called about, because I had so much turmoil inside of me of what I was going to do about this, and it had gone on for years. So finally,
it changes your makeup. I mean,
it does. It does, because the first thing, because of that, you feel you don't have any value, and you can't get better if you don't feel better about yourself.
Right.
So I got to the point that I had to seek some professional help, because I was thinking about doing some really bad things to him. And I knew that.
And we can laugh about that because it didn't happen.
It didn't happen, but the thought was there. And I thought, you need to get some help.
Right.
And so I sought that help. And through that, I was able to gain back who I was. And once I was able to do that, I could say, I don't want this anymore. This has to quit. And it would quit for 2 weeks, and then we'd be right back at it again. We'd go maybe 3 or 4 months, and it'd show up again, to the point where I finally said, this isn't improving. I'm improving myself, and he was unwilling to do that.
So you finally became strong enough that you were able to leave that relationship. And you said it took you some time before you could trust again. And
5 years.
And eventually you met your second husband, and he's the one that passed away.
Yes.
And then you went into real estate. And so one of the segments that we do on this show every week is the cup of the week. And surprising to me is that Jeanne doesn't drink coffee. But I know her husband, Donnie, and he drinks. So her cup today is in honor of Donnie. And they are one of the sweetest, sappiest, couples. But it's sincere. And so your cup here filled with water is in honor of Donnie's
drinking coffee.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so how did you guys meet?
We met through a good friend of mine who was a friend of his. And after my husband had passed away, it was probably a year, and I told her that I was wanting to go out to dinner or go to a movie, something.
Yeah.
And she said, I have just the guy. And so I was leaving her house in Jay, going to my house in Crescent, which was almost 3.5 hours. And he called me on the phone as soon as I left her house, and we talked all the way for 4 hours and didn't have a dead spot.
Well, I know Donnie, and that's not surprising. Donnie can talk to anybody for 4 hours, but okay.
Well, the thing we had in common is horses.
Right.
And so we could talk about that and horses we rode and horses we loved and things that happened to us that should have killed us. And just from the very beginning I had a real attraction for him. One thing I asked him, all of my husbands have been shorter than I am because I'm 6 foot tall. And so I asked him, I said, how tall are you? He kind of laughed and he goes, 6'3". I said, great. That's good.
Check.
But also his background, and in leading to what I'm doing in land, his family's background is in construction. And he knows it inside and out. So he comes with me on many of my listing appointments and looking at houses and gives me his opinion from a whole different perspective. His family were plasterers, which is now a lost art. And he's been consulting people who have these old houses built in the 1800s, early 1900s. And a church, 100-year-old church, they asked him to come and look at what problems they were having with plaster. So he has been just such a great partner for me in this and has allowed me to be as successful as I have. And that teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah, it does.
And having that support, and again, we get back to that, to spouses, that support is so important. I support him in what he does and what his dream is, and he supports my dream. And in spouses, they may not be the same dreams,
right.
But it's important that we support each other in what those are and find out how it is. And that's where your relationship becomes stronger, makes you happier. You accomplish more.
That's right, it does. And I'm going to tell you somebody else that loves Donnie, and that's my good dog Buddy. I should have brought him today.
You should have.
He would have fit right in here.
I say Donnie is one of those people that has that quiet soul, because there will be people that say, oh, don't touch my dog because they're kind of mean, and the dog will go to him. Mm-hmm. And they always want him to touch him. He does that with cats, with horses, and people too. People are attracted to him because he's very kind.
He is. He's very kind.
Yep.
And we get our dog food from Donnie, so I'll make a little plug for him.
Yeah. No better feed than Total Feeds.
And you deliver it.
Yeah, and we deliver.
So now let's talk about Green Country and Henrietta, this whole area. What do you love about it?
Well, Donnie and I picked Henrietta. I was looking for a house for a client and found this one here in Henrietta that we loved. So that brought us here. After being here, it's still about the land. I love it. I love the differences between the west side of Oklahoma and the east side. I think this is the prettiest side of Oklahoma because of the hardwood trees, and Donnie being from Ohio, it attracted him to that too.
And now you work with clients all over the country.
Yes, I do.
So tell me about some of those interesting clients that you're working with at the moment.
I have a fellow from New York City.
New York City?
Get a rope. Who's drawn to Oklahoma and wants to invest here. So I'm working on finding him some property. He's interested in the Tulsa area. He wants to have a home here and then do some investing. But Oklahoma is, because it's so centrally located in the United States, and from my perspective, it's number 4 in the horse industry. And between Oklahoma City, the Lazy E, and Tulsa, we have the most major horse shows of any state in the United States. And it's easy to get to because we're centrally located.
We are.
So that brings me clients from California, from Wisconsin, from Michigan, from Florida, all because those are on the outer peripheries. And California has some really tough rules about animals and showing animals. And it's become almost impossible for them to do because of PETA and some of those groups. So they're looking to Oklahoma because, interestingly, we do not have zoning in the counties. You'll find zoning around major cities, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and there will be zoning in the area, but out in the country there isn't, which is a double-edged sword because you don't have to follow any codes to build something, but you should.
Right.
But you're also not restricted in what you can build, where you can build it, and that's a blessing for anyone who's wanting to do that. One of my issues, and thank heaven we don't have it here on this eastern side yet, but are the windmills, the wind farms that are going up in the eastern part of the state. And I don't think many people know the ramifications of what they cause. It's been shown to cause aggravation in the animals because of the vibration of those wind turbines. And the animals become aggressive. It's caused abortions. It's caused birth defects. And
not to mention that they're just ugly after they become ineffective.
And when they're ineffective, it's the rancher's responsibility to get it.
Yes.
And it can be up to $75,000 or $80,000 to get rid of that. And you still have 40 tons of concrete in the ground.
Right. I have friends in Texas that are dealing with that.
Yeah. And so it's, I wish everyone would take a deeper dive, especially our legislators. And they're clouded by the fact that it brings in tax revenue. But we're destroying, and especially the aquifers underneath those. There is concern that the vibration will cause toxic minerals to be loosened and pollute that aquifer. And if we don't have water, we're done.
Which is just one more reason that we love this area.
Yeah, that's right.
And why businesses should want to come here. We're right the crossroads with I-75 and Highway 40, Interstate 40. It's just the perfect location for business growth.
Yes,
we've got the land. We need the people to come and invest.
Sure.
We've definitely got that. So I want to just thank you, Jeanne, one more time for coming in this morning and being a part of this show. So many interesting things that you could share. She's just experienced so much. You have so much knowledge, education. You're just so strong. I love you, and I appreciate you coming by. So thank you all for joining us today. We look forward to you stopping by next Tuesday, same time, same place. New set, maybe. How do you like this set?
I love it.
I love it.
I think it's pretty.
Very
and thank you. I think the world of you as well. And you've made a big difference.
Well, I appreciate it. Now we're going to go, kiss up on each other. So, all right. Thank you, Green Country. We'll see you next week.